This is
ManVsMood.
We have a very special guest to my left today. Are you ready for this?
I am.
Why don't you introduce yourself so we know who you are?
Yeah, so my name is Skylar. I'm Jen's husband.
Better half.
Hey.
Ball and chain or whiny boy in the corner.
Whoa.
Whiny
Never
boy
in
in
the
the
corner. Nobody puts whiny in the corner.
Nobody puts Sky in the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. As I think we announced it on the last show, Jen is going to be moving, and Skylar as well, to Arizona. And so we wanted to jump on the opportunity to have Sky join us. And we're going to be talking about the emotional needs of men after we get through all of our blessings. And now that we've added another one, we get to have more blessings. But I think that having the dynamic of the two of you, when Jen told us that you'd be joining us, I think that that is an exciting dynamic for us because we get to see how she interacts with the three of us who are relatively new people in her life to the person that she has literally spent the vast majority of her life with. So
True.
I think that that is a very cool dynamic to bring to the show. So I thank you very much for
And you're actually our first guest.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Way
that's
to go.
right.
Way to go. All kinds of things being broken here. No, nothing's being broken. I don't know what I said.
Doilies are being broken.
Oh, we
Doilies.
can
Hey,
burn
don't
doilies.
say that. My mom's here in the other room.
I
Talk
love
about her dying, bro.
I love the doilies. I'm actually gonna talk to her and see if I can take some with me.
You're going to make
I
a
will
banana hammock out
gladly
of
give
them.
them to you.
I am.
Yes, a doily banana hammock.
Oh my god.
Let's
No.
see it. Let's see it, Mike. You can do it. Get your stitching skills.
Oh
No.
my god.
Make it happen, Captain. So, as we do with each show, wow, that was a hell of an intro.
Welcome to the show,
everyone.
Sky.
Thanks. Exactly. We do like to talk about something that we feel blessed about, that we're just happy about, something good that happened to us, something like that. So, Sky, why don't you take the lead on this one?
Thank you, sir. Well, first, I just want to say thanks for the invite. I really appreciate it. Long-time listener.
First-time
First-time caller. Big
Long time,
fan.
first time.
Fan of the show. I really like you guys' input and your just strength and your ability to be able to share things about yourselves. It's not easy to do. It's not something that a lot of people do, and I just think it's really cool. So good job.
Thank you very much.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Thing I'm thankful for that I've just always been thankful for, I think, but is just recently being reminded of it, is just having a community, because we're moving and it's a short time frame, and being able to meet with people I've never met with to, sell or give things away. And then, we've asked some people here and there to help us with some things here and there, while we're moving. And it's not, the most stressful thing in the world, but it sucks.
Yeah. Oh,
moving.
You can literally take my toenails off rather than move. But
That's about where I'm at
So-
right now.
yeah, I bet.
Yeah, I guess I'm just thankful for my community. Yeah.
That's awesome. Jen? This guy's looking at you like.
And you notice how he kept that short and sweet, right? So
Yeah.
I know. We'll
What are
see.
you saying, Mike?
Short and sweet. What do you mean? I talk a lot?
No.
I know this. It's okay. It's okay.
Not at all.
I own it. It's cool.
See, this is exactly why I wanted you on the show.
So I think what I'm thankful for, I'm thankful for the ability to stop and reflect during this process. I mean, I feel like I'm going Mach 10 like all the time right now, but I have these small moments of reflection. The weather's been wonderful the last few days. I'm like, really? Pacific Northwest, like really? It's been sunny and crisp and beautiful outside, and I've been able to take some slower mornings lately, and I'm like purposely building in like slow mornings so I can just like breathe for a second, because it's like we're moving and packing clear until like we go to sleep at night, 'cause it's like, what we got to do. And the mornings have been so beautiful, and it's been a good reflecting time for me for like what I am thankful for. And most of the things that I'm most thankful for have nothing to do with like the physical place that I'm living. It's the people, and it's the relationships built. And honestly, I'm grateful that I know myself well enough to build great relationships. That's not always been the case. So I guess just, all the reflecting things I'm grateful for.
And acknowledging that you know how to build those relationships,
Yes.
because they are a lot of times I think when we're younger, we take an opportunity based on the fun, looks are a big part of that, and circumstance.
And access. Like, honestly, I had such a small community growing up, and that's all I knew.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's more curated because it's like I'm connected to the people I want to be connected to and that are connected to me. And it's just, it's so much more curated now in a great way.
Rather than high school where you're jammed into a building with a bunch of people that otherwise you would have no reason. I mean, yeah, they might live in the area, but having to have these forced relationships because you're on a team or something like that, you build kind of an artificial bond, in my opinion, because a lot of times when we look back at high school and middle age like we are now, you look back and what in the hell was I thinking? I really need to rethink my decisions 25 years ago. But no, that's awesome. That's awesome. Mike, what do you got for me?
Well, I was going to go different, but I'll probably cry if I talk about it, so I don't really want to talk about it. I would say being able to go to the gym now that I feel healthy again after having COVID. So I've been 5 of the last 6 days. I gave myself a break on Sunday. I still went because Hunter wanted to go work out, so I helped train him and teach him how to do things correctly instead of just trying to slam everything.
Yeah, that's, especially his age, he has to be very careful. He
thinks he's really strong, but when you got you're doing the lat pull downs and you're only pulling a 5, I'm like, you got to start somewhere.
Oh yeah.
So don't feel like you have to be doing 50 pounds right away. But it's good to be doing that, and my kids have been joining me at the gym. So and then Michelle joins me at the gym. Way cool. So it's been good. The
kids at the gym is such an underrated thing that I think a lot of parents don't take that opportunity to bond with them, because you do get a true chance to teach them, because they don't know what they're doing. And we all have seen videos of people clowning themselves at a gym when they're chicken winging or they have no idea how to use the machine. Teaching children how to, or not children, but the teenagers and things like that, how to actually do the exercises so that they don't get injured. Because when you do repetitive actions like that and do them wrong for a long period of time, you are going to end up with a huge injury.
Yeah, I tore my shoulder up in high school from doing bench press when our coach would say, you have to go take that bar with all the weight and go all the way down to your chest. Well, you're not supposed to go, your elbows aren't supposed to go past 90 degrees. And so you bounce it off, and now I tore up my shoulder, so it always pops when I do bench press.
That's terrible. So, well, kudos to you, because that's a hell of an opportunity.
So I've started that journey of weight loss to catch up to you guys.
Well, COVID obviously put a big dent in that. So that's it's good that you didn't, because a lot of times we get sick and it takes us a long time to pull out of that funk that we've been in when we're sick and feeling like garbage. So.
Yeah, my lungs are definitely not back to normal, but I'm pushing through it.
Well, you got to lay up on the 4 boxes of Marlboro Reds a day that you've been smoking.
It's Newport, actually.
You got Cools. He's a cool fella. He's got them Cools with the long draw. Oh my word! Yeah, and then he puts his arm on the back of the
You guys are both caddy. Wrong. It's Camels.
Ooh, good point.
You are Joe Camel. What do you got for me, Gary?
Man, I'm thankful for I'm thankful to be here. Just these past couple days, I just ended up running into some old family members and stuff like that, and
they were physically old, or
they're older than me, so
they're old.
My son thinks that I'm the oldest person on the planet, so I guess they're old.
Wow.
At least he acknowledges that you're here.
Right. Yeah.
So that's a bonus for a 16-year-old.
True. Right. So I think that I don't know, it's just been an interesting journey just over the last year, and I'm just thankful to be around a positive group of people, and just be ever learning and stuff like that, and just be wanting to grow. Over the weekend I went to Hood River and enjoyed some of the restaurants and stuff like that there, and
love Hood River.
It was just good just to get away and kind of reset your brain, and kind of just think about what you want to do in life and goals, and yourself, and just be one with nature and stuff like that. Lastly, Mike's shirt is amazing. That shirt is
Dunder Mifflin, baby.
Dunder Mifflin Paper Company. That
Thankful
is
for a shirt.
yes, that shirt's
from The
great.
Office.
Yes,
And you know what the main guy's name is? Steve Carell's Michael Scott.
yeah,
And that's my first and middle name.
Oh, is it really?
It's
Wow,
That explains a lot.
Wow.
That really explains a lot. But thanks for bringing that up.
wow, that is amazing.
I actually had a friend of mine that went through the experience yesterday or the day before. I think she's back in Chicago, and she put it on her TikTok. That
The Office experience.
yeah.
I knew
so
there was
she
the
got-
friend experience. I didn't know there was the office.
I don't. She was in Chicago. I don't know if she's in New York now, but I don't know where it was actually she did it. But yeah, she had a cool video and whatnot. But
That's fun.
Michael Scott and like Dwight are they're like Batman and Robin to me. They're just amazing.
they,
Some of
There's
the best
something.
memes
yeah,
on the
there are a lot.
planet.
There's a lot going on there. If those are the people you're looking up to, hopefully not for life advice, because
Just
Michael Scott
entertainment.
is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh man, we can go a long way with a black guy looking up to Michael Scott.
And Dwight.
Yeah,
and Dwight. Don't forget
too.
Dwight.
Yeah, he is a beat
Well,
farm,
that's
Yeah, the
one-
Beat
that's-
Farm.
You only like Dwight because Rainn Wilson's really actually a Seahawks fan.
and he's from Kalama.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
no,
yeah.
not from his in-laws live in Kalama.
Yeah,
He's from the area though,
Yeah.
like
Northwest.
Seattle or something.
Yeah.
he's great.
Yes.
Him and Al Bundy are definitely some of my idols.
Again, explaining a lot here.
Very, no.
Really shoot high for the sky
No,
here at
very.
Man vs. Mood.
I got big goals. What can I say?
Yeah.
Beat farms and
Now your
and
beet
shoe
farm, you can have
salesmen.
like ones and twos though. That's the
Yeah,
beet farm.
That's
right?
true.
Not-
That's true.
Well, I'm very thankful for something last weekend that I got to do, which was go to the beach, first time in nearly 4 years, and it was again a spontaneous trip. I looked at the weather last Wednesday and I said, this does not happen in January in the Northwest, where that big yellow thing in the sky that brings us happiness is out for an extended period of time. So I called our favorite hotel down there, and we jammed down on Friday afternoon. And it was funny because Friday we got there was like 2 cars in the whole parking lot, no one there. Saturday by like noon, jam packed.
Wow.
The beach was full of people.
Wow.
It was a lot of fun.
Well, it's
down
very
there.
rarely 60 degrees
Yeah, I
in
know.
January in this area.
No
Yeah.
kidding.
Oh.
It's barely 60 degrees even in July at
It was
the beach.
it was 55 degrees up at government camp.
Wow. Was it
Wow.
really? Oh my god.
The
That
snow's
was-
melting fast. So
Yeah,
Holy
it's
cow.
it's not
very,
good.
very global warming.
Global. Yeah, exactly.
But no, it was got to have a bunch of really good seafood. Ate at the Lost Rue, but we also, if you're going to be in Long Beach, go to the Chowder Stop. If you like clam chowder, it's gluten free and it's awesome all at the same time. Unfortunately, that's the only gluten free thing on their menu, but it was fantastic. So I highly recommend that. And Lost Rue is good as well. But always good to get to the beach. It had been far too long for us, so I'm glad we got to go down there. And
Cool.
It's awesome.
the crabs were huge. I have
I saw your
never seen
picture.
Dungeness crab that were that big. When we walked in, we go to Fisherman's Cannery, and I looked in the tank, and I said to them, I'm like, Dungeness do not get that big. She's like, this year, and because Friday night, the whole ocean was just lit up with crab boats.
Damn.
I mean, it was wall to wall.
Wow.
And she said, yeah, they're huge this year, and that's why they had the crab season open earlier, because they were so big. So
Wow.
that's what the lady at the seafood shop says. Don't quote me on that, but anyway, always beautiful down there. Lots of fun people. Got to play the arcade. Rode the electric
I
bikes.
love
Oh,
those.
nice.
Those are fun.
$25 an hour. They go over 20 miles an hour, and we rode up to the
Oysterville?
North Head Lighthouse. No, we didn't go that far. The North Head Lighthouse, and looked out over the ocean and the dike or the levee. No, it's not a dike. It's a jetty.
Jetty?
Yes. Anyway, so yeah, always fun to do that kind of stuff.
That's cool.
Yes, indeed. Today, as I mentioned in the open, we're going to tackle a topic that I don't think it's talked about a lot. I think it's catching on trend on Twitter a little, or not Twitter, on TikTok a little bit. But it's really hard to encapsulate what a men's emotional needs are in 15 seconds, a minute, or 3 minutes. I think there's a lot more to it, and I think that the reason there is a lot more to it is because each one of us is different. And we all have different needs. We have different love languages. We have different ways of communicating. So it's hard to put it into a nice little box and say, hey, this is the package that every man needs, and this will solve all of his emotional crises, needs, whatever it might be. I think that it's a very good thing that we're starting the discussion, though. I think that talking about it, obviously, is the path to seeing, and it's not solving it. We're not going to solve it because each of us is different. But to have that open communication, whether it's in a relationship with ourselves, with our partner, whatever it might be, so that men finally get comfortable with having that discussion. Because I think that's one of the biggest things that we struggle with. Sky, what do you think? I'm going to turn to you first. And that communication with your spouse is, I mean, I know that you two have amazing connection and we hear about it. And so we're lucky to know that bond is there. But I think a lot of marriages really struggle with that because guys don't want to open up. Jen, you have kind of alluded that it hasn't always been like this and that it's been a journey. Mm-hmm. What is it like for you to feel comfortable and vulnerable enough to have that, just the opening discussion, like I have needs that aren't being met or that I would like to explore more?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's, it's really tough because communication is probably the backbone of any relationship. You have to be able to communicate. As soon as someone in the relationship cuts communication off on purpose or on accident, but they're unwilling to reestablish communication, I mean, the relationship is kind of over at that point. There's not really much you can really do. So, and it's funny because like in the beginning of our marriage, it's sort of, so Genevieve's has a tenant, and stop me if I don't want to speak for you necessarily, but stop me if
I recognize that our relationship is out on a podcast, so
it's been there for a while.
I was like, I kind of understand the situation, so keep going.
Okay, so typically I was the oversharer, actually.
Really?
Yeah. So in the beginning of our marriage, yeah,
awesome.
I would overshare, because I don't like baggage, and so
I was the emotionally constipated one. Let's just be real.
didn't say that.
I
didn't say that.
I
okay.
totally was.
Time out.
No. Children. We need to separate you two. Yeah.
So what Jenny has something critical that she wants to share with me. It's really hard for her, right? Because she is a bit of an obliger and she doesn't want to hurt my feelings. And so it was a little bit of dangerous territory in the beginning of our marriage. And so oftentimes I was getting kind of like 70% of how she really felt and not 100%.
Maybe less.
And
I was so concerned about like upsetting him or hurting his feelings or making him uncomfortable that I would almost make the decision for him. Mm-hmm. And it put up a huge barrier in our relationship.
That's a two thing.
Very two thing to do.
Yeah. Well, and then to add insult to injury, I was always oversharing, like, hey, this bugged me. And, I don't like carrying around baggage, right? So I'd always like want to get it off my chest. And I realized that there was a needed balance because to her, I was just like beating her up verbally all the time. That's the way she was taking it.
Well, and my love language is words.
Yeah.
But I didn't know all this when we first got married.
Yeah.
Like,
So after a while, I established a kind of balance, right? And but like I'd say a couple of years later, we had kind of like another sort of wall where I don't know how to really describe it, but like I was trying not to have. I try when I'm talking about something serious, I try not to have any emotion or inflection in my voice. Mm-hmm. And what I didn't really realize is that the other person takes that as, oh, I'm pissed off.
Yep.
Instead of just be neutral. I mean it to be neutral, but it sounds like I'm.
Well, that's because when you remove the emotion, that is an emotion to
it's
people like
yeah.
me, because that's what I hone in on is I'm listening to not just your words, but your facial, and voice inflection, things like that.
It's also a two thing.
Well, then and it was only about a year ago I realized that, or I didn't realize, I heard that communication is actually 80% visual, like body language, tone, like audio, visual. It's not really the words. Like the words really only count for about like 20% in terms of what people are absorbing from you. So we got to this point where I was being really stubborn. I'm like, no, I'm not mad at you. I'm trying to be neutral, right? And she's like, well, you sound pissed. And I'm like, well, I'm not. So stop taking it that way. And she's like, I can't you look and sound pissed. She's like,
It's like, do you want me to videotape you?
yeah.
I can.
And I realized that at that point I was miscommunicating because I was not, even though I may not have thought that it was being received that way, it was being received that way. And when you're communicating with someone, you have to be cognizant of how they're receiving it based on their personality and based on your delivery, no matter how neutral you think you are. And that in itself is a miscommunication that really bothered me. So I changed, I tried to change the way I communicated. And, we have little tips and tricks and things that we've done that work for us specifically, but in no way am I ever like, oh, I'm coming from a place of knowledge and I can help,
solve your problem.
Impart my wisdom.
Yeah.
It's so custom made and custom fit for the relationship. It's more about what works best for a pair of people or a family instead of like, here's what you do if you want to communicate correctly. There's no
boilerplate for it.
Yeah, there are wrong ways to do it, of course. But anyway, so
I also think that the beginning of that, before we get to like clear communication, it turns into understanding the need, like the emotional need. Like I knew part of the reason when we were dating that I fell in love with him was because he could just articulate and communicate so clearly on what he was thinking and feeling, and I admired that because I'm like, I don't know what I'm feeling, I don't know what I'm thinking. Like I was like, give me a day to think about it and I'll come back to you. Like I just couldn't.
You're like an emotional sprinkler. You're just like
it was so painful. I didn't want to wait.
I would feel things, or I know. And he argued so calmly. He still does. Like I'm the one that's like at the emotional heights, and he's just like looking at it very pragmatic. And I'm going, how do you do that? Like, and so I think it all came down to something he'd said to me early in the relationship was like, I'm not going anywhere. Like, you're not going to make me so mad that I'm going to leave off of like a few words. Like your actions mean more than anything. So you're just going to have to accept that at some point we're going to be mad at each other.
Yeah. I was like, you're going to piss me off. I mean, it's going to happen, but I'm still going to love you for it. I'm not going to go anywhere. It's just, we got to get through it. Just don't be afraid to be honest with me and what you're feeling.
Yeah. And I think it was having that emotional safety led to great communication. It took time for me to understand that I was emotionally safe. And I didn't realize this at the time. It was more of like a hindsight thing. I can see the progression there. And I think men go through the same thing. I think it's a human experience, really, having that emotional safety. And I think men have been taught from as long as they can remember, as long as they are cognizant of like social cues, that emotional safety is not a thing. And I think that's why boys are encouraged not to cry. That's why guys don't quite understand feelings, because it's always been not okay. And it turns into, where is your emotional safety space? Have you ever had one? Probably not.
Well, it's also, so one thing that is kind of not something that a lot of people talk about is communication with yourself.
Yeah.
And like, okay, so do you guys remember that movie Heavyweights?
Oh yeah, the one where it's like a fat camp or something, right?
Yeah, where the guy goes to the fat camp.
Yep.
Ben Stiller's in it, and he goes, but there's this moment where Ben Stiller like starts freaking out, and then he calms himself down real quick, and he like walks away and turns around, and he's like takes a couple of deep breaths. He goes, "How you doing, little Tony?" Bad. Why do you feel bad? Because everything's not going my way and it's all falling apart, And anyway, so he's sitting there having a conversation with himself, right? And he looks like an absolute nut.
He does this.
I do that.
We all have to communicate in our own way.
Right?
I was blown away. He told me that he did this early in our marriage, and I was just like, okay, I know. Where did you learn that? Like, I know that that's a taught skill. It's a skill.
Well, for him to share anything, I mean, that is so commendable for him to be an oversharer, because most men, and I'm going to look at you in just a second, Mike, are not capable of putting into words what they're feeling. And you hit the nail on the head with the emotional safety. Yeah. The reason I'm pointing at you is because the emotional safety and crying and not putting your emotions into words for your loved ones is something that you've talked about, and how you want to make that something that's not looked down upon by men or women mainly, and men as well, because it doesn't matter the scenario. If a guy rolls up and he starts crying about something, Now, I'm not talking about I got a flat tire, so I'm going to, bawl. I'm not, like what you're going through right now. So for you, when did you, and I know we've talked about time frames before, but was there like an epiphany that you had when that emotional safety with yourself? Because I think that we're not safe with ourselves until we get to a certain point.
I can cry by myself, like no problem. Like I'll watch, I don't know, for whatever reason, dog movies, like Marley and Me.
Can't watch it.
I won't watch them either.
My dog Skip, like some of the anything that has to do with dogs and
I'm
dog
a cold-hearted motherfucker then, because they did not.
Man, those wreck me. But a lot of times, and it's only because of my own personal experiences that I've gone through with, like my dog that I had since she was a puppy, and that was probably one of the hardest experiences was putting her down. So dealing with that, like I can do it on my own. But for example, I took Hunter to a movie. Last week we went and saw Spider-Man, and of all things, like I'm starting to tear up during the movie, and I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? But it wasn't like the movie itself, it was just kind of the words that they were saying. Yep. And I was listening to those and going, okay, when you die, nobody's gonna ever remember you. Maybe your kids, their kids, if you're lucky enough to still be alive when they're born. Mm-hmm. And they're old enough to grow up and still be in your life. But after that, if you don't do anything in your life, we're not like Betty White.
No.
Who's going to really remember us? Yeah. What legacy are we going to really leave behind? And so that really struck a chord, in a lot of ways of like, man, I'm 43. I'm gone through most of my life. I haven't really done anything except for cause, havoc and some other stuff. But who's going to really remember me after 2 generations?
Yeah. And that can be very hard for us. Mortality is something that I think when we hit 40, you'll learn about this. I think, are you 40 yet?
Not yet.
It is, and I know that we make fun of it and things like that, but your life becomes a little bit of a snapshot because things that you took for granted in the past, whether it's your health, whether it's your family, whatever it might be, it all of a sudden rushes up to you like you're going to rear end a car. And that's what the end of your life looks like. You're cruising along, everything's happy, you're cool and chill, and then all of a sudden there's brake lights, and it's like, holy shit, what? Whoa, wait a minute. Now things are getting much different than they were because when you were 20 and you heard that the 43-year-old guy got cancer, oh, he's 43. That's literally like
I still got 23 years till I hit that.
Exactly.
Right.
Now you're 43 and you're like, I'm losing friends from high school that have cancer.
Right, yeah.
At 43, in their 40s.
Exactly. And so it's something that, I mean, and I don't know when we each have that moment. Maybe you guys have had that. But it is something that I really encourage you to pay attention to and dive into that. And really try to understand that the next 40 years of your life, you can really make a difference in your life and other people's lives just by looking back at the mistakes that you made. Gary, I look at you and the mistakes that's a joke. But the emotional safety part that Jen brought up, you struggled with that as a kid because you were not in a safe space in your home to be, physical and emotionally and mentally. Mm-hmm. For you, understanding that emotional safe space has been, I think, a winding journey. From listening to you in the podcast and talking to you, but what does that look like for you? What is that emotional safe space for you, having come from a different environment than any of us?
For me, it's definitely different now. I'm very thankful for that because like I said before, my safe space didn't exist as a child. When I go to sleep at night, I never knew somebody was gonna come in and throw something at me or hit me with something or some nunchucks or whatever, right? I just never knew, and then you'd wake up for Christmas or whatever, and you would never know when you unwrap your present and you put it down if it's going to be stolen, right, or whatever. And I just think now this journey that I'm on to improve myself, I'm seeing it by leaps and bounds and stuff. And it's funny because we're talking about crying and stuff like that. like I've been watching this show. It's called The Maid, and like it's
like
so
Fran Drescher.
No, it's a new Netflix one.
It's
You do?
so fucking sad, man.
Really?
Like it's so sad, and like I literally cried through it, and like before I would never cry, but I just think that like, you know, like I'm getting older, you know, like I'm finding my like feelings, and I'm going through therapy, and I'm talking about things, and I'm, you know, like listening to, you know, different people just talk, you know, about their journeys and stuff, and it's really making me want to be better and like want to help more. And I just think that I'm finding new like pieces and spaces, you know, like within myself, and I'm watching this show, and it's just, I didn't even want to tell anybody that I'm watching it.
Well, it's a good thing you did it on a
Oh
podcast.
my, right. Like I my roommate, her like brother came over, and like I just quickly just like turned it off real quick,
bro.
I was like,
I got the game on.
I was
Don't
like,
you worry about it.
we're watching some Sports Center here, and I'm just like, I don't know, like I just found
Why
myself,
do you feel like you had to hide that?
just because it's so sad, man. Like do you watch it? Do you?
No, I haven't even heard of it. But you know, when you were saying all that, all I'm thinking is, sounds like Gary's cold heart is actually warming up. It's kind of,
Just
in a
because
lot of
it's
ways.
like-
I saw you kind of like
Yeah.
the Grinch, and
Yeah.
his heart's all dead and dry in his chest, and then
Yeah.
just like starts to beat back life. And that to me is what you're waking up in a lot of ways. And there's so many people that are just walking around with nothing.
Yeah, just because I think, you know, like I was always taught just to be like an apex, like, you know, like
Predator.
guy, not a yeah. I mean, yeah,
Not
like
not in the
like in a
bad
certain way,
predator.
yeah. But I don't know, like I was just trained like, don't fucking cry, don't complain, don't you know, don't do like all these different things. So it's like when this guy like comes over that I know, but I don't know him, I'm like, I'm probably gonna turn this off because he, you know, might say something. But it's like I like talked to one of my friends about it, like at work too, and he was like, I watched that too, and I was like, oh, okay, well, let's go ahead and talk about it. And I don't know, like the show itself is just, it's so sad. Like she tries so hard to do right and to do good and to help out like her like family and to help out her life, but her past situations and family and trauma and just all this shit keep coming back to like screw her over. And
Talk
I'm just,
about the epitome of not physical safety.
Yes,
Like you can't even
yes.
like approach emotional safety until your physical safety is taken care of.
Exactly.
And it's like, I mean, looking at not all the details of your past, but you have been working on physical safety pretty much up until recently.
Exactly.
And now you're like hitting this new place of evolution because you're secure and you feel good about your physical safety because you've curated it and made it what you want.
Exactly.
Right. And like, that's the beauty of adulthood,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But then, you know, stuff comes up, divorce,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
other grieving things that other people can go through. And then you have to go through the process again of get those physical needs in place.
Yeah.
And then you can just let yourself kind of relax into emotional
Yeah.
safety. Emotional safety is so much about the relationships that we're building. And I have a feeling that's the next iteration for you, is creating that emotional safety because
Right.
you've done the physical safety.
But I feel like that's just the beauty, like in the joy of life, is like going through these different stages. And it's like, it's interesting because like I said, that I ran into some family members like over the weekend, and essentially like the space that I'm trying to go toward, like it's more of like, why am I doing that?
Mm-hmm.
And like they're just, you know, still doing the same things like they were doing before. And like it's just interesting because I see like so much of myself like in this character, like in the Maid, and I'm just like, that's so crazy. And then the second time that I cried, so I was listening to an audiobook, and the guy was just talking about like his childhood dog dying and stuff like that.
Really?
Oh man, the dogs.
It was just brutal, just because like for me, like for my family, like a dog would get sick and they wouldn't even tell me they were going to put it down. Like I would just come home and the dog would just be gone. I'd be like,
Where's Fido?
I'd be like, yeah, where's the dog? And they'd be like, oh, we fucking killed it or whatever. And I'm just like, awesome.
Oh my word.
Thanks for setting me up. And,
Right.
And I think that you've hit a point that I really would like us to dive into a little bit, and that is the emotional needs of men that begin in the family.
Yeah.
And that means at a young age, whether it's 2, whether it's 10, 15, and obviously those emotional needs change. For you, that was not something that you had in your immediate family, but you still were able to find ways to get some kind of attachment. What did that look like for you when you were a kid? Even if you were 8, did you, because I know you've mentioned your coach before, you had one that kind of shit on you in a really bad way, but you've had connections with other ones. Where did you kind of get some emotional fulfillment at a younger age? Or did you?
No, like for me, like I'm just thankful like that I played sports, because if I didn't play sports, like my life I think like would have been different. I think that I never would have went to like college or anything, and I just would have been possibly stuck like in a rut with like some people like that I grew up with, and maybe that's fine for them, but it's like, you know, just listening to Mike talk about like mortality and stuff like that, like it really makes you think what you want to leave behind, you know, for, you know, your kids or your family, or just even to even help people and stuff like that. Like to me, that stuff is important. And I think that through sports, like I met people that I never would have like interacted with or been around or anything. And I just think for me, like I had a few coaches like when I was young that like really wanted to see me succeed. But it was mostly just like friends. Like I had a friend, she would bring me around her family, and like to that point I had never, you know, seen like a regular family or like a marriage, or, you know, like at that point, like I thought therapy was like for people that are crazy.
Yeah,
and like people
that's what I mean, because whether it's on a television show or anything, therapy was for crazy people. I mean, that's what literally like clinically insane type stuff.
Exactly.
I share the same thing with going to a family. I had a friend, and her family was, I mean, as Wally and June Cleaver as they get. Parents were awesome, 2 girls, and I went there. I mean, this is how badly I wanted to go to their house over my house. Right. I worked undercover for Inside Edition and Channel 8 News. I went undercover for a week to expose a magazine scam. And
how did you get hooked up with that? You mentioned the story last time.
I knew the guy that did the story. His name was Chuck Whitlock. He lived down the road from me. Anyway, so if I've told this story, I'll keep it quick. But I came home. I had like 6 hours where I could be away from them because they got me out. They like extracted me, and I went to their house. My parents picked me up. I hopped in my truck and I left because I didn't want to see I despised my stepdad, and so I
wanted emotional and physical safety.
Because they were just nice to me.
Yeah.
And so then I went and did the whole thing with that. But I look back on that and I'm like, I was 18 years old and I just left my family. I was under stress, all kinds of things there, and I went to where I knew it was safe. Where I knew that people actually, where you
could heal a little bit.
Yeah, and my mother loved me to death. I will always know that, but the dynamic with my stepdad was not that way. So I share that with you, and how we connect with people, and we, through like serendipitous situations. You didn't know that you were going to go over to your friend's house, and it was going to click in your mind like, this is what like a real family looks like, and there's no stress. I don't have to worry about people copping my shit.
Man, like for me, like it was just interesting because I think like that friend and then my son's mom's family, like that was like the first family that I really seen to where like I was like, damn, like not everybody's out to get me and like try to, fuck me over or whatever. So that was just interesting, and like that saved me. Like it really helped me, and I'm very thankful for that, for sure.
Sky, what about you? When you were younger, how did you develop this ability to share that was already there before you met Jen? And I thought she was the oversharer. That's amazing.
That is kind of funny when you say it. Yeah, when you put it that way. It wasn't really like it. When I was 10, my family was my parents were having some marital issues, and the whole family was just, the backlash of that was we were just arguing with each other. We were fighting with each other constantly. And this is not typically how we acted. So we went to family counseling for, I think like 6 months or something. And so I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm so great and amazing because I figured out how to communicate early. It was family counseling, right? Mm-hmm. I went there and I observed, and I respect information. I'm sitting here, and the therapist is just helping us figure out how to communicate. And the two things I really walked out of those sessions with after 6 months was learning how to identify what I'm feeling, and having that inner conversation. What is it that I'm feeling? And the second thing is why. And it sometimes takes a while to figure out the why. Mm-hmm. Typically, I can reason my way through what it is I'm feeling. If I'm feeling angry, and something will set me off, and I don't know why. And it sometimes I don't even know what I'm feeling, and it really, really bothers me. And I kind of put myself in timeout, and I kind of like go into a...
He still does this.
I hermit.
It's awesome. I love it.
I go full hermit, right? Yeah. Because I don't want to say or do something that I don't mean. Just because I'm pissed off doesn't mean I have to treat everyone else like shit, right? Yeah. And so I'll typically have to go figure it out. I'll go in the shop and tinker, or I'll get on my longboard, or I'll just go for a drive or just something. And I have to figure out what it is I'm feeling, and then I can typically figure out why. And if I'm having trouble in my adult life, I've been able to talk with Jenny about it and be like, I don't know why the hell I'm angry or frustrated or sad or depressed, but this is a thing. And why do you think this is happening to me? Right.
Or what have you noticed? Like, it's kind of nice to round table I'm not sure why. I mean, I go through the same thing with him where I'm like, I do it way more than he does because I still feel like I'm learning.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? And I think I'm a little OCD about being in control of my feelings all the time. And maybe that's something I need to work on. Maybe I need to be able to let go and be like, it's okay to not have control all the time. But I mean, I cry sometimes during movies, and, we've had arguments sometimes where I've just broke down in tears all of a sudden, but yeah, it's irritating.
And he says that tongue in cheek because we don't want any of our listeners to think that getting in touch with their feelings is because I know how irritating that is. And I do say that tongue in cheek because we get mad at ourselves. We look back at the way we handled something, or we bottled something up for far too long. I think Mike and I share that trait. We really like to just jam shit as far down into our toes because then we never have to touch it. Because we're just tap dancing around.
That's such a lie.
Well,
because it'll come back.
It'll come back,
and that's
all of its infection and infestation with it. So.
Yeah, I mean, it turns into gangrene.
Yeah,
that's honest to goodness what it does. And so it's a matter of finding that place. What about you, Mike? When you were a young man or hunter's age, let's use that because we've gone through some of the traumas that you experienced when you were that age. How did you find emotional safety, or were you able to do that?
It was tough to really kind of find that emotional safety just because, it was such a chaotic house didn't know what mood he was going to come home with. Mm-hmm. Did he have a bad day, or is it going to be, hey, we're going to get Burgerville and everything's great tonight, or so when shit would hit the fan, I would typically go lock myself in my room and play video games, a nice escape. I didn't really have emotional safety from anything. I would say growing up, I was in youth group and kind of grew up in the church over in Portland. And Wednesday nights, I would always be at youth group. Mm-hmm. And I could really rely on some of the, my youth leaders. And so that was kind of my home away from home, I guess you would say. Yeah. But for me, a lot of it was, and I've had this with my best friend and some other people I've grown close with, but I grew close with them, and then they would up and move away. Yeah. Or they'd take a different job, they got a head pastor at another church in California, so it's just I don't let myself get close to people because they just leave, in a lot of ways.
It's an abandonment issue.
Yeah. So, and I think a lot of that stems from when I was 5 years old, and I remember my dad driving down the driveway and not coming back. So I think it's still prevalent now. I mean, I took it pretty hard when I heard you guys are going to leave.
But I want you to know that I'm physically not going to be here. I'm not going anywhere.
Oh, I know.
I'm you guys are stuck with me.
See, and I'm incredibly happy for you.
I am too. Yeah, don't get me wrong.
And that's not what what I mean. I have had so much loss in my life that it's just tick another one off. Yeah. And it has nothing to do with you as a person or anything like that. Yeah. It's just that I've had so much loss that because after I lost my dad 18 years ago, And that started in my grandfather, who is the second most important person in my life, in 1997. And it's all been downhill from there. And it's just loss after loss after loss after loss. And so I focus on being excited for you and knowing that there are so many positives. There's not it's not a bad thing. And that we've seen, because of COVID, because of financial situations, a lot of times people have to make moves not because they want to. And I've been in that boat, and
never
it
thought we would leave.
Sucks.
Yeah, never thought we would leave.
Yeah.
I've never lived outside the Pacific Northwest. I lived in Utah for 11 months when I met him, but
yeah,
quickly came back. And so this is going to be a big change for me.
It is. And that is something that, we kind of ride the lightning on that a little bit, I think, and we talked a little bit before we started recording, but you have that excitement and the anticipation and the, oh shit, I'm leaving a lot here that you put a lot of time and energy into. And so I can see why that would be a major point of contention in even making the decision to do it.
Yeah.
So one of the things that when I was thinking about this topic of the emotional needs of men is identifying an emotional need that each one of us has. If we're willing to say that, you don't have to say 5 of them, you don't have to say 10 of them, but if you could put your thumb on, and then what I'm going to ask you is, actually, I want to ask you first. What do you think the top, if you could say 4 or 2 emotional needs of men that you see are, and then we'll go around the room, because I want the female perspective of this.
Well, this is kind of an interesting thing to explore for myself too, because when I had Paxton, my oldest, I was like, I felt this immense need to protect him emotionally, which seems weird to feel like you have to do that, like as a woman, do that for your son. But I watched men in my life for what seems like apparent reason kind of turn into emotional basket cases when they had all these amazing opportunities. They got brought up in wonderful homes. They had college educations, but yet when they're like in their late 20s, come to find out that the reason why they were such a way in like elementary school and junior high is because they were bullied. Yeah. Or because there was this secret thing going on that I didn't know about, or that they had a bad home life that I had no idea. And it's like, and then you stack on top of it the societal pressures that men get. It's just like the perfect pot of mess. Like,
so that's us. We're all a big pot of mess.
Well, I think the
emotional
first
gumbo.
Gumbo, yeah, right. I think the first emotional need is safety, just like we were talking about. Like, it has to be, but if you really look at it, it has to be that physical safety first, and then you can start exploring the emotional safety, and that takes time. Oh, yeah. That takes a lot of time. It's like you think, okay, like for instance, Gary, you're in a physically safe place. You've created that space for you. It wasn't like all of a sudden you were emotionally like intelligent. You're like, I get it now. It's like, no, it takes time of self-exploration. And so it's like, for emotional needs, you need physical safety, you need emotional safety, you need time, and then you need support. And a lot of times that's the magic thing that's hard to find. It's like sometimes physical safety is not a thing for a lot of people. Emotional safety is definitely not a thing in your workplace, in your home, in your extended family. And then you get into like the support part of it, and that's when things get like super sticky. You think you've got things worked out at home, but you really do need a support system. Yep. And I think men get told that they're the lone wolf, that they stand on the mountain alone, and that they can do all these things by themselves. And that's, I think that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's debilitating if you think that's how it should be.
Or we're taught that we're supposed to be like that in our lives, except when we play sports. Then we're supposed to put the team ahead of everything.
That's also where a ton of toxicity comes in, is in sports too.
Exactly. But when we're only taught that is the one place that we can let other men be capable around us, encourage them, be happy for their success. You scored a touchdown, you got a slam dunk,
because it's just a game, right? It's just a game.
Exactly. Yeah. And As soon as the timer hits 0,
Every man for
back.
himself.
Exactly. We're back to, I'm going to stab you in the back, take your girl. I'm going to go.
Take your spot.
Yeah, take your spot. Exactly. That mentality where you're the apex predator and I've got to do whatever it takes to tear them down. But when the clock starts, then we're all cool together. That's one fucked up dynamic. I mean, I'm just going to call a spade. And so when then you're 18 and you play your last game, which is likely we're not all as talented as Gary, we get to exit the athletic arena. We go out in the world and we're like, okay, I still have to kill them, but we got team meetings and they're hooping and hollering and we're supposed to be, yeah, but I got to beat him. I got to make more money than him. Mike, you have dealt with this. You talked about this 4 episodes ago where you went to the dinner for work. So it's a really crazy dynamic. So I don't mean to get off on that because I still want to hear what your second one is. But how do we process that? How do we go from I'm supposed to kill you and eat you and high five you and be thankful for you all at the same time? I don't know how to do that. Do you?
I don't think it's possible.
I don't. And so, but that's the web that we've woven for men. How do we deal with that? We'll get back to that.
Yeah.
What's your second one?
I think my second one for like emotional needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think my
we have a lot of other needs, but we'll focus on
needs.
emotional ones right now.
I think it's identity.
Yes.
I think that a lot of times men get shoved into an identity and there's a spectrum. There's like a huge spectrum. It's a bunch of shades and there should be a shade just for every individual man. And I think that's why like there's so many men that think that they can't wear fashionable clothes because that's not manly. Or there's men out there that think that they can't cry.
They're considered metro.
Or they're considered metro or yeah. That's part of the reason
Proud
why.
of it.
Hey, this man actually like grooms his beard, and I'm so grateful.
Hell,
Thank
I
you.
have somebody do it for me. No, we'll talk about beard care tips. Holy shit.
It's shifting a little bit, but it's so cultural. But once we've gone through that physical and emotional safety, then deciding who you are is like a big part of emotional need. Because if you feel aloft, like afloat in the world, and you can't tether yourself to something, it's really difficult to pick a direction, to where to go and who am I, why am I doing this. And
I would agree, but I think sometimes some men are a little different, and I don't know if who I am or they need to identify as something is super, super important.
I wouldn't say put a label on it, but almost like values, like there's a set of values that are like important to them. Like when I first met you, one of the reasons the guy that I dated just before Skylar was
let's bring up old shit. This is a good time.
He's heard it all anyway.
Right.
Safe place. It was a long time ago. Okay. He was an asshole. Like honestly, this guy was an emotionally abusive asshole, and
we won't say names. What was it?
Mike Barnhart. No,
It wasn't me.
No, it wasn't you.
It was a different one. I got his baseball card.
But it took me a hot second to realize what was important to me when I was deciding that it was. I thought it would take me 10 years to like really actually date again. Just after 6 months with this dude.
Damn,
like, this guy
did some carpet bombing.
Oh my gosh, that could be a whole episode. But one of the things that really stuck with me when we were just dating, we'd only been on like a couple dates, was I could tell and I could see evidence of how important integrity was to Sky, and coming from such a stark contrast, it was so attractive to me that somebody would care that much that I knew that I could count on him to always tell me the truth, and always, even if it was uncomfortable or painful, because he'd already kind of done it in the first few dates where I was like, wow, that was all right. Okay. I feel like I clearly understand this dude. And that
emotional
was really
maturity.
Well, I had been in a really bad relationship like a year or two before I met her, and I had just from then on I was like, you know what, I don't give a shit if I hurt people's feelings by being honest. I'm just gonna it is what it is.
He was just truthful.
And that's a huge thing though, that I think again when we're shoving all that stuff down our throat into our toes, we're not being emotionally honest with ourselves first.
Emotional integrity for yourself has got to come first.
Absolutely. And I think that the identity thing, all of those things are kind of in a mortar and pestle, and then when we have this realization of what our needs are, we're smashing them together to create the paste of us.
Yeah.
That it's an amalgamation of a number of different things that help create who we are as men. And so it's not an easy thing to do, because it takes time to get those ingredients, to realize what our values are.
For sure.
Especially if we came from a fucked up childhood, like most of us here have, where we had traumatic events occur. Those ingredients have to be replaced, because who we thought we were miles away from what the reality of it is. And
when you recreate yourself, your value system changes too. It's like, and I think that's part of the emotional intelligence that men still have to go through. It's just a different, I think it's a slightly different formula than it is for women. And I'm still not quite sure what it is. I feel like raising a almost teenager is like, oh gosh.
Oh, you have no idea.
Oh, I don't.
Just get ready to feed them.
Yeah.
That is an emotional
we're there.
journey.
Yeah, we're there.
I'm sure it doesn't get better. Mike, I'm going to start with you. Can you name one emotional need that you have, or kind of the identity, whatever it might be, what that looks like for you?
I would say just to be seen. You know, for most of my life, I felt like I haven't been seen.
To be acknowledged.
Yeah. So that would be, you know, especially like Michelle, she sees me and she lets me know she sees me. And so like, I don't have words to tell her how I feel, but like I tell her the best as I can, but like to me, that's huge. So
that's gigantic, is because you named a little bit ago when you said, I didn't know who was going to come through that door. And the one thing you did was you escaped from it. You got away from it.
Oh, I'm really good at escaping.
But
I'm
the
a master
point,
escaper.
Right? The Irish goodbye. I love the Irish goodbye. But what that did to you and how that set you up for wanting acknowledgement from people that you put trust in and that you loved. I mean, mom and dad, and I'm sure your mom was dealing with a whole host of shit.
Oh yeah.
That was, I mean, whether it was physical, emotional, or mental, that she was trying to protect you from, but you just had to go put yourself in a cocoon, and that stunts you. And it isn't until you kind of reach back and start opening up to that, and then you begin to emotionally mature. When you realize that I'm not that 12-year-old that shuts himself in my room. I'm not the 13-year-old who worries that my uncle's going to steal my shit. And that's that enlightenment that we talk about so much, that you kind of see the light and you wish everyone else would see the light. Listen here, motherfucker, you need to see this light. Yeah. And you shove it, and then guys will shut down. Gary, you see this, I think, more out of all of us, and I'm not going to get off on a tangent, I promise. But you have a lot of people tell you, why would I want to get in touch with those emotions? But what is the one thing that you could identify as an emotional need for Gary?
For me, like the thing that keeps ringing out is just like an emotional need of time, because I feel like time just breaks down like into so many different like aspects, you know, like whether it's safety, you know, whether you feel safe with people, whether those people feel safe with you, and I just think that, you know, just so many times, you know, like in my life, like you feel like you can trust somebody, you know, and then you find out, you know, what they are 6 months later or 9 months later or a year later or 10 years later or whatever. And I just think that, you know, like especially, you know, with time, you know, like when it comes with growth and, you know, making yourself better and self-improvement and stuff like that, I just think it's major and big, you know.
Well, and that also shows a commitment to you that you didn't have when you were a kid. People didn't pay attention to you in a meaningful manner. You were fighting with them. Yeah. And so that, I can see how that would be a huge thing for you. Sky, I'm going to turn to you now.
Sorry, what's the question?
What is one of the emotional needs that you can put your finger on for you, not
right.
men, for you?
So for me personally, it was, I would say probably feeling loved, which is weird because I like to think of myself as a bit of a lone wolf, or rather that I'm an introvert, right? And it took Jen's help to help me realize that in our early marriage that I can't put my happiness on, I can't put that responsibility on anyone but myself. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why I thought that way. I think I took bad marriage advice or something. I was trying to take care of her and she was going to take care of me, and I took it too far and I didn't take care of myself.
Yep.
And but it's very important to me that as much as I feel like I can survive on my own and be alone, I need to feel loved, right, by someone other than just myself.
Yeah,
I'd say.
Well, we enjoy being affirmed and being shown that we're important and that we're not the definition of the people around us. We're our own definition, but those people accentuate that.
Yeah.
And so that's why you talked about community. Gary's talked about teams. Mike's talked about youth group. The one thing all of those have in common is a community. They're people that you are surrounded by, that you trust and you feel you can bring your barriers down. Now, unfortunately, sometimes those people, mask comes off and we realize that they're not all the best. But by and large, when you feel that, you don't have to force it. You know, whether at youth group or in therapy, you don't have to force, like, I'm going to be nice to these people, damn it. You shouldn't have to feel that. And although we've all probably been in situations like that, you naturally will find those areas and those people that you're drawn to because they have similar values and not even interest. I think values is far more important than interest, because we can find people that like cars or music, but that share the same values at the core of your human being is, and that is a form, if you share that with them, that's a form of love, because love is not like physical touch and things like that. Guys come in, I have a lot of love for everyone in this room, but it's not a romantic thing. It's a bond thing, and we have put ourselves, the four of us, and now you've joined us today, through kind of emotional torture. I said before we started recording that when I listen back to these episodes, I mean, that shit it's a roller coaster, man, because I get to hear you guys again, because I'm doing a lot while we're doing this, and so I'm listening to you and all of that, but
you're in interviewer mode.
Exactly. Yeah. And producer and all that, and I'm so it's the hardcore stuff hits me more when I listen back to it.
Yeah.
And I can hear. One thing that is nice for me is, and this is just me as a person, is your voices tell a different story than your faces. And so when I remove your faces from it, I can go back to it. I can go back to the look Gary gave me or the look you gave me, Jen. But for me to answer the question of one emotional need for me, I think love is a big one. And I didn't realize that until my mom passed away. And when she passed away, that left a hole in my heart that I didn't realize I was capable of having, because it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I mean, it really, really did. But the second thing is the identity that you brought up, because when I was younger, I was defined by the way I looked. Gary's probably felt this as well, but not in a different way. People felt sorry for me, and I despise that. Don't ever feel sorry for me. This was not something I did to myself. This wasn't something that I got hit by a car. This was something that just happened. But I don't know what it's like to have two hands, like I've told you guys before. Like, you guys don't know what it's like to have three. So I don't feel sorry for you that you don't have three hands. And don't feel sorry for me that I don't have two. Yeah. I make do with it. But when I would play sports, the coaches always gave me special attention and just, we'll go light. No, fuck you. Don't go light on me. I'm getting ready to start jiu-jitsu. And they're all gearing up to just put the wrecking crew on me. And I like it because it's a challenge for me.
I hope they kick your ass.
Oh, and they like three of the trainer guys, because I know them, they're like, oh, we're going to wrist lock the hell out of you. And I'm like, okay, bring it. You're going to wish you didn't. But they've been doing it for years, of course, and they're like belts and all. Anyway, but I so that identity of I overcorrected and tried so hard to not let people help me. No, I will do this. And to this day, I struggle with that. I don't want your help. Now, one thing that I've learned from that, though, is that once I can do it, I prove to myself that I can do it, then I have no problem with help. I absolutely love it. Yeah, help me, whatever. But I just have this overwhelming need to prove to myself that I can do it. And that's part of my identity is that I can overcome these challenges, these physical challenges that most people can't identify with. Although I did see, and so this is a good example. We were bowling a couple weeks ago, and there was a kid that had a hand kind of like mine sitting at the table, and his dad started chatting me up. I could tell that kid was using his hand as a crutch. I can see it in every once in a while I will come along people that have a similar situation. And almost every one of them has this victim mentality. And I just have tried so hard not to be a victim and to look down on myself for that. And so it's that emotion of me proving to myself. And so this is something that I have to work on within is, okay, you can let people help you. You can do this. You know you can do it. Let them help you and then try it yourself afterwards. But that's a barrier that I've really had to break down. What do we see in society that is missing the most for men's emotional needs? This is sports. That's why I kind of wanted to get back to that what we were talking about, where we have these crazy dynamics, where society is removing the emotional need from men without asking them, without consent, just telling you, you've got to suck it up, you've got to deal with it, you've got to beat him, you've got to beat her. What do you think is some of the biggest issues that society is seeing right now in not meeting the emotional needs of men? Jen, do you want to lead this off? Because and the reason I do this is because you bring such a different dynamic to our thought process. And for me, I don't know about you guys, but it gets my wheels spinning because it's outside of my box.
I love this. I hope you guys don't mind.
That's why I like to start with you, is because then I think it kind of kicks all of us into gear, because maybe we haven't quite thought about it that way.
I mean, I think the thing that I see the most in society right now is that if you are not on the fringe, then shut up and sit down. Like, honestly.
Fringe. What's the fringe to you?
Like, if you're in the minority if you're not a minority in some way, and like in Gary, for you in a lot of ways, I hope you feel a moment where you feel like you can express yourself and put yourself out there. But I think a lot of middle-aged, especially white men, are being told to just shut up and sit down. And while I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, I think it could overcorrect. Just like what you were saying, like we could be overshoot and men could turn into like, oh, I'm not supposed to have an opinion. I'm not supposed to express myself because it's wrong. And I think that is a lot of messaging that's being sent out there, that men shouldn't have an opinion about things, that they should. And while I think listening is good, and while I think that there's important to help other people feel emotionally safe, and Gary, you said that earlier, and I want to circle back to that, because men are in a good position to help other people feel emotionally safe, and that creates an emotionally safe space for both. And I think that could be the biggest part that's missing, is men are not, it's not popular, or it's beginning to become this way. It's not glorified for men to create a safe space for other men or people in general. And if we can get to a space as a society where it is celebrated when a man is like, go ahead and cry in front of me, go ahead and tell me your problems, let's talk, and that creates that community, because that's how you create community, right? Is you hold space for somebody else. When men can hold space for each other and other people, and it's popular to do so, I'd like to think that it's turning that way, but I think I'm also more attuned to that culture, you know?
I definitely share your sentiments with that.
Yeah, I just think it's really important, whether it starts in a private space, and heck, maybe it's that we teach the younger generation how to do so, and that's the way it's going to change, because, man, we've got, 40 years of indoctrination to undo,
Right.
and so maybe it's not that we're going to do anything that's going to change our generation, because we're, past that time, but I certainly hope that we're teaching that to the younger generation of, I'm trying to teach that to my son, because he can be very black and white about things. Mm-hmm. So emotional safety, giving that space and holding that space for other people, I think is something that men in general could be more popular.
Well, it could definitely be more popular. You look like you were going to say something, Sky.
Oh, I was just saying, it really triggers me when people react toxically, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, anybody standing up and telling someone else to shut up and sit down because they don't have problems, it just boils my blood, right? They don't frickin' know.
Yeah.
You don't get to make that decision for them.
Not only that, but yeah, straight white men, they get a bad rap because we have a lot handed to us, and we may not think so. We may think that we work scrap and nail for everything that we got, right? And we do, but there's a lot of stuff that we are handed, or a lot of situations that go correctly because we're male and we're white.
The way
and
has
potentially
been paved.
Straight, right? Mm-hmm. But it's not everyone likes to make it. They paint this broad brush and well, everything you are is because you are white. It's no,
because you have white privilege.
Are you freaking kidding me?
It's
if Gary would be one of those people that we would be telling to shut up and sit down, if Gary, let's say you built up this, empire of companies and you were just super successful and you came from nothing, right? And you're just I'm just here to help, and you comment on social media about something, that feminists are, talking about, and you get told to shut up and sit down because you're rich, right? Mm-hmm. And you're successful.
Yeah.
You don't have problems.
Yeah.
That just boils my blood. It's you have no freaking clue. And so to try to come up with some kind of map or compass, it's how do we navigate this? The only thing I can think of is it's fairly easy to identify toxic behavior. Fairly easy. Regardless of if you agree with that opinion or not. Mm-hmm. Someone could very well share an opinion you agree with, but their behavior is toxic. Mm-hmm. At that point, I filter it and I'm I don't know, man. I kind of see what you're saying, but just because of the toxicity that you're breeding here, and other people are jumping on the bandwagon and it's just spinning out of control, and all of a sudden it's we hate men, they're the enemy, and I'm just I don't buy it. Yeah. I just don't buy it.
I'm going to turn to you now, Gary, because he brought up a number of different points that are rock solid, mm-hmm. and that all of us have dealt with. But you have been a business owner. You have started those types of things. Mm-hmm. How has that, societally speaking, so I'm thinking more globally in your life, how did people look at you when you started it and you've let us know that ended? Yeah. How were you treated in those different scenarios?
Oh, I mean, from the second we went to Texas just to get all of our certifications and stuff like that, we were just looked at as aliens almost.
Really?
Because my dad, he's from Lagos, he's from Nigeria, and he has an accent, a thick accent. So just instantly, and it's just interesting, just sitting here listening to you guys talk, because I feel like I literally dealt with something similar to that, over the weekend.
Really?
Or last week at work actually, and somebody told me that I overreacted about something. And I'm just sitting here.
You're okay.
I'm just bro, shut the fuck.
Tell me how I overreacted. Right. Please let me know.
See, that's just them not holding space for you. Why couldn't they just listen and accept your experience as your experience, not theirs?
Exactly. I'm just sitting here thinking, for one, you can't really tell somebody how to react, to something. You wouldn't tell, certain people just to react, in certain ways. And I think that, I've talked with this person about therapy and stuff like that before, and they've told me that they go to therapy, and just to me, one of the first things I learned was like, you can't tell somebody how to react to a situation. Like, you haven't walked in their shoes. You haven't lived, in their skin. You haven't you haven't been them. So for this person just to tell me that, it really fucking pissed me off. And
so how did you deal with it though? How did old Gary deal with it, and how did new Gary deal with it?
Old Gary was about to go DMV.
That's got a title now.
I was
Gary DMV.
Full DMV.
Yeah, like I was right there, because I was right there, and I just turned and I looked at that person, and I was just like, okay, all right. And I mean,
was that because you weren't going to be able to change their mind, or
100%.
it wasn't worth it?
100%. Both. Like, I
I
wasn't going to be able to like explain to them the way that I have experienced life, or my father has experienced life through my lens. Like, it's just not going to happen, just like for Jen, like she wouldn't be able to, do that, because she's a woman. Like, I'm a black man. Like, I'm not going to be able to explain that to somebody that, isn't black. Or
and I think that's the human experience.
Yeah.
We are supposed to just acknowledge each other's and get experience and get to that place of like the best connection is understanding.
Exactly.
And holding that space. And the second that you're like, that's not a real experience, is when that person goes, oh, am I crazy? And you start to go, oh, that wasn't a real, and then they start questioning themselves. And that's just not our place. Our place is to hear someone else's experience, and there is no right or wrong. There's no true or false, unless we're, spouting facts. But most of the time, the facts are skewed by our emotions.
Yeah.
And so we twist the story based off of our emotions, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just like your coworker being like, you overreacted, the moment that you have zero reaction to them, you're going to be like, yes, I win, because that will happen as you go through this journey. You're going to go through this point where someone's like, oh, well, you overreacted, and you go, oh, that's too bad that that's your thoughts.
Yeah.
Like,
But yeah, like it's funny. Like, I wish that I could talk about it more, but the person that said that to me wasn't even there, and somebody else.
So that's third. It's third hand.
Yeah, basically, and just somebody that witnessed it was like a business owner, and they told me that I handled it very well, and
really,
that the person that was saying these things to me is just a bad person. And I've told that to this person, and they were just like, you overreacted. But I mean, the reason why like I didn't say anything was because this isn't the first time something like this has happened.
Yeah.
And I spent countless times talking to this person, talking to people, that know this person, and nothing changed. So I'm just like,
nothing will.
Yeah.
The people that are stuck in that cycle.
Did you ask them why they felt that way?
Because they only view life from their lens.
Well, I'm just saying it's interesting when someone has critical feelings about or critical opinions. It's like, oh, well, why do you feel that way?
Yeah.
And a lot of times what you hear back is like horseshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of it.
Yeah.
Because I just don't like you.
Or you're just not doing it the way I think you should, and that is the only way because that's my way.
Well,
I had a bad day, and that's just how I felt in that moment.
Well, you do get, a little bit of a semblance of opinion from them, and they'll probably try to start to explain, try to weave like, oh, shit, they asked me a question. Okay, let me come up with a bullshit answer.
Yeah.
And all you have to say to that is like, okay, well, that's how you would handle it.
Yeah.
But because you and I are different, I'm having different feelings, and
Exactly.
I handled it the way I did based off of my experiences, because you and I are different people.
Exactly.
And it's a shame that you have to explain that to somebody. But when you do, I don't think, especially if you say it in a kind way, no one's going to be like, well, you're just stupid. They're going to probably feel a little abashed if they're a reasonable person. But if they're just out to hurt you, I mean, just don't waste your time fucking talking to that person anyway.
Like, I think at that point, there was no, like, me being nice. It was me just instantly, like, reverberating every curse word that I could ever think of in my entire life. But I like started to say something, and then I just looked at them, and I was just like, all right. And
you're not wasting my breath on.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it just wasn't worth it. And I just think that like, when I'm thinking about things like you can't tell somebody to overreact. Like, what I was going to say to this person was, if you were talking to like a military veteran and it's, 4th of July and they're complaining about fireworks or loud sounds or something like that, you wouldn't go to them and be like,
Yeah.
you should calm down. Like, you're overreacting. You would not say that to this person, right? And I just think that was the first thing that came to my mind, but I just thought, I'm not going to do it.
You're bigger than that because you've grown. You're new Gary.
Yeah.
We love new Gary.
I'm not fuck you, Gary, anymore.
Exactly.
I try not to be.
Well, as we begin to wind down, because we're well over an hour already, and kind of look back on this, I'm going to come to you last, Sky, because give you an opportunity to kind of see how we wrap the show up. I'm sure you've heard, but also to get your take on what this experience is like and what it's been like to go from a listener to a participant. So, Gary, why don't you lead us off with final words and what you've got
For
what is new Gary, not old Gary?
Yeah. For me, like, I don't know, like, I really just appreciate you guys. And it's funny because, like, when I'm listening to, like, audiobooks or, like, different podcasts and stuff like that, like, I keep hearing all these things after, you know, that we've talked about. And for me, like, I'm very sad that Jen is leaving, but I'm very happy for you guys. And so I don't know, like, I found myself just thinking about all the things, like, that I've learned from all you guys, but, like, specifically Jen, like, over, like, the last, you know, short time that I've known you. And I'm like, wow, like, she spent all this time with me, like, talking about, you know, all these things, you know, with, like, Instagram and Canvas and just all these different things. And I'm just thinking, like, Jen has really showed me, like, what it's like to be a good person and what it's like to be positive and, you know, and what it's like to really just help people and not want, like, anything back. And I think that's the definition of love. And I just think I really appreciate you a lot, you know.
Thanks, Gary.
And
You can say you love her. It's okay.
Her husband's just sitting right there. Remember, he does make knives.
Right. And he throws them even better.
I've seen him, and I was honestly just about to say that, and then I was like,
no, you can say it.
I'm gonna have to tell her when Sky's not here. But,
That might be a little worse. I don't know if that's the right
True,
moment.
No, I feel the same, Gary. Honestly, like, it's so funny. Just yesterday, I caught up with a friend that I haven't spoken to since, like, October, and she has a podcast, and she's wanted me on her podcast since October, and we just haven't been able to make the schedules work.
Sorry, you
holidays
can't
and
have
stuff.
her.
No,
Holla at your boy.
Only. But I can't believe I haven't. We just been in totally different universes, and I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't told you. I'm like, I'm podcasting. She goes, what? And I got the opportunity to tell her everything we were doing. And she was like, of course you are. Of course you are. The only woman on a men's mental health podcast. Of course you are. And she was like, tell me about your co-host. So I was telling her about you guys. And I was like,
They're the most three damaged group of guys.
right.
no. I
so
have
fucked
mad
in the
respect
head.
for all three of you guys. Like, I'm like deep respect. And it was fun to be able to break down all the different stories and things that I know about the three of you guys. And I really do. I love you guys.
Yeah.
We've only really been.
This isn't
known
the
each
last
other.
show, okay?
No, it's not. It's not. I may be a little distracted
Yeah.
the next few times I record, but I don't know. It just really means a lot that you feel that way.
Definitely. I think that, you know, we, like, haven't known each other, you know, for so long,
I
but
know.
just
October, what?
right, like, for me, just to see how you are and how helpful you are, you know, with us and with the community and stuff like that, like, it's beautiful. And I think you know, something that I'm always going to remember is us just talking about things and you just instantly getting this huge smile, like, on your face and so excited to talk about it. I'm just like, I'm gonna learn something. Like, I know I'm gonna learn something.
Gary's like, sit back, okay.
Yeah, and I don't know, like, I just find myself just always learning, you know, from all you guys, and, you know, like, I'm very thankful for everybody.
It restores faith in humanity
Exactly.
when we meet people that are genuine and follow through with what they're going to say, and you know that they actually care.
Yeah.
Like, really care deep down. And we're all going through our own shit.
Yeah.
But to have a little slice of room or time for us, just because in this day and age, we don't have a lot of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all superficial. It's swipe left, swipe up. So I mean, we're just swiping everywhere. Swipe on, swipers,
Right.
not swiping.
Swipe on, swipe off.
No, swiper, not swiping. What's that show for? What?
Swiper, not
Dora.
swiping.
Thank you. I didn't know. I just remembered that.
I was gonna
Swiper,
say
no
it. You,
swiping.
you beat me to it.
This reminds me of Jen whenever she hears a topic.
Yeah.
He's
cat.
throwing
Yeah.
the
Like-
Shaq
Shaquille
meme.
O'Neal when he sees like a chicken burger or something.
Right.
He's like,
Like
Oh,
I
you
just,
guys, I get so excited.
I just instantly think I'm about to learn something. I'm gonna pull out my notepad and I'm
I'm
just
like
gonna
over here
listen.
fidgeting, like I things I want to say, and I'm
I
like,
know.
no, okay,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
don't.
yeah.
Okay.
Geared up. What do you got for us, Mike?
I'm just grateful for the whole experience that we've been going through. It's good to feel again, even some shitty things that you have to feel, like people dying and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just glad I have a group of people I can lean on when I need to.
Always. They're when you need to lean on them for heavy shit, they're there for you. Because we all have people we can call and give me a case of beer or something. But when you got some heavy shit, those are the ones that set themselves apart.
Yep.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Jen, you're twitching. What do you got for us?
Well, now I'm just all
Verklempt?
Yeah, I'm verklempt, you guys. No, I say
This guy's like, I haven't heard verklempt in
I
years.
haven't. It's awesome.
perfectly describes
It's
it.
like a thesaurus over here.
I don't know. Like I feel like I'm a broken record lately, but it really is. I'm grateful for this space that we've created for each other, specifically here. I mean, there's been some pretty heavy breakdown of things. Guys, we haven't even broke down my heavy. All you guys, we'll get there. But I'm just grateful that I feel comfortable that when the right time comes, like I know you guys you guys will listen and you guys will really take it in. And that's rare. It really is. It's so rare to find people that hold space for you because life's hard. And sometimes when you haven't dealt with your own shit, you can't even listen to other people's shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that's a real thing. And not to say that we're all perfectly worked through our own stuff. It's mostly that we understand the value in it and we can hold space for someone without taking it in and internalizing it, because we can feel empathy and we can feel sympathy and we can feel those deep emotions for someone and realize the value because we've felt it for ourselves and with other people. Anyway, I'm just really grateful to have a tight-knit group that I can do that with. So.
And I want to acknowledge what you just said. We have extracted a lot of value from you, the three of us, and Sky has for years, but he gets bonuses for that. But we have extracted a tremendous amount of knowledge, emotion, time, and so I want to thank you, and I know the guys thank you as well.
I love this.
But that is something that, I didn't foresee when you came over to look at my
I know, we were just going to talk equipment.
Zoom thing.
Little did you know it's part of my plan.
Yeah, right. but that is something that you just brought up that I definitely want us to get to, and it has to be on your time when you're ready to do that. But where we fill up your cup like you filled ours up, and that we have that commitment to you because you've had that commitment to us, and that is not an easy thing because I know you dealt with emotional stuff at your other podcasts and whatnot, but what we're taking from you is emotionally taxing, and so I thank you very much for that willingness, and I promise you when you are ready, we'll be all ears and we will fill you back up with all of that goodness that you've given us because I don't know that the show would be nearly as complete without your voice.
Oh, I love being here. I love that you guys value what I have to say.
Oh, very much.
It's not always the case.
She just comes for the doilies.
Yeah.
The doilies.
And I know that it's something that I'm working on hard is showing that appreciation. I don't say a lot of appreciation because I want to show it. But I also don't want it to be like every time I see you, I say the same thing over and over again because then it diminishes that.
Yeah.
So it's
Same way.
Yeah, it's quality over quantity for me.
For sure.
So,
That's why I didn't say anything about you. I just you already know.
Mike's like, I texted it to you.
Yeah.
Hashtag guy move.
No, it's okay. You showed it with the eucalyptus oil when I had COVID.
Oh,
so
yeah, there you go.
And your shepherd's pie.
yeah, my shepherd's pie.
He smelled like an...
I owe you, actually. You took care of her when I couldn't because I was on my
Yeah.
back right next to her. So
No
y'all
problem.
were the infirm.
That's what we do for each other, though.
Yeah,
Because
right.
I had it recently. She ran all the way to Washougal to bring food and that liquid IV stuff. So,
It's good stuff.
yeah.
stuff's great.
Sky, we have a few minutes, not too many. Don't make it a Jen answer.
Don't,
Okay.
no.
But what
No.
is it like to, and give us your final thoughts, but to be a listener and then to be a part of it? What is that feeling like? Because I think it would be valuable for the four of us to hear what the listener's take on it is and then to sit in the seat.
I'm all about what you guys do, first of all, because I think that you provide a lot of validation for people out there thinking the same things. And like what you guys have done here, and gal, is you've created a...
Thank you for the inclusion.
He had to say that,
had
other
to.
was going to catch some shit later.
I was going to be like, guy, huh?
guys.
Guy.
Folks. I don't want to say folks, okay? It's just weird.
It's
anyway,
Y'all.
what y'all have done here is you've created a space where, like, any one of you would have been able to come to the podcast after a week and just say, guys, I think I fucked up. Someone triggered me and this is what I said. And I feel like uneasy about it. Can I bounce it off you? And can you tell me what you think? Everyone needs someone that they can do that with, or even a group. And what you guys, gal and guy, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Oh, stop. It's fine.
You
Oh my
people.
What you people?
That's all part of the patriarchy, and we'll talk about it.
What do
later.
you mean, you people?
Oh my gosh.
I'm friends with all kinds of you people. What?
What does that supposed to mean?
What you've done is you've done something that I don't think anyone has done just to enrich their life, which is get together with a couple friends every week and just talk about, as guys talk about, your challenges and your challenges with self-growth, your challenges with feelings, your challenges with a crazy lady that won't let you inside the gas station so you can do your job.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Just-
the thing.
Just and it's like everyone needs. So what you've done for yourselves is awesome, but now you've put it on. The air, or YouTube, or iTunes, or and Spotify. Or are you guys on Spotify?
Oh yeah, we're on all of them.
You put it on all these places, and people feel so validated now that they can sit here and listen to, like, oh, this is what it's like, right? I need to get me that, and I feel like that's probably one of the largest values that you have created by doing this, and keep doing it. I mean, even if, like, I don't feel that you guys would care. Even if you had 0 listeners, you'd still be here doing this.
Yeah, because I think
Well, that's how
all-
it started out between,
Yeah.
we started out as strangers and we're leaving as
Yeah.
family,
Yeah.
And that is just going to pay dividends in the end. You're probably going to help people you have no idea that you've helped. And me, as a fly on the wall, it's really cool to listen to your guys' stories and listen to how you've, changed and things that you want to do differently, or just expressing and feeling validated from, the other people in the room. And because it's not like you guys are sitting here telling each other how to live life and like, oh, I got advice for you, son. You know?
Yeah, right.
I think that's what the world is full of, people speaking down to the little people. It has
Or
nothing
telling you what to do.
Yeah, they have everything worked out. And just pay me $29.99 on my Gumroad subscription, and
Right.
I'll tell you.
Crazy.
That's the key to ever eternal, figuring your life out. But a lot of figuring life out is acknowledging that you don't have it figured out, and then surrounding yourself with like-minded people, because the ones that are trying to talk down to you and solve your problems, even though they don't walk in your shoes, probably have a truckload of problems that they're hiding, and that's why they're solving everyone else's problem.
Mm-hmm.
Hand up, I've been that person. So as a 2, we lean into that. We'll just leave it at that. Sky, I want to thank you very much for joining us, and I want to thank you for letting us have Jen.
Absolutely.
And sacrificing that time with the family. And even though we have gone long a few times, but but that is a commitment, and so I want to thank you for that as well.
She doesn't let me tell her what to do anyway. So. And
I'd
be a fool to try.
Yeah, so. I didn't think it was one of those like, look here, woman, you're going to sit down, you're going to make me dinner.
Well, I'd be like, excuse me.
What did I say when you said that? Yeah, they want me to be part of the podcast. What did I say? Do you remember?
I remember
God
the
help
feeling,
them.
but I don't remember the words. What did you say?
I basically just said that's super cool.
He did. He was.
I think a
he's
woman's
like, that's great.
woman's
We
perspective
need
would
it.
be great. Yeah.
We need it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, with that, I want to thank everyone for listening. We hit it again. We hit some hard stuff, and I'll have fun listening to this back. But thank you again, Sky. We gone.